Thank you. All right, Mr. Thomas, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Chick?
Present.
Ms. Ganem? Present. Mr. Gordon? Here. Ms. Matthews? Present. Mr. Stanilechko?
Present.
Mr. Thomas is present. Mr. Zarzaki?
Present. All right, great. We have a quorum. Adoption of the agenda. I would like to add on discussion of master plan and sewer under 11B and change number 9F from Downtown Planning Group to Land Preservation Committee. So I'll make the motion to adopt that with those changes. All right. Mr. Gordon, could you put the microphone down towards you? Thank you. Otherwise, we can't hear you. All right, so there's a motion by Stanilechko, support by Gordon. Are there any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Call of the public. If anybody from the public would like to come up to the microphone and make any comments, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address if you wish. If you're here for the public hearing, this is something that we can discuss later. You do have the option of making your comments 3 minutes here and now and 3 minutes later if that's what you choose. So, all right. Oh. Let's start that over.
All right. Jack. Different elevations, including siding and brick. So the first slide there you'll see it's kind of like a farmhouse style, and this is obviously siding heavy. It's more on that extreme side, but it is yet attractive, and we believe it does fit in well with the community. And the second one, you'll see some different colors. Actually, a couple of those are built by Robertson Brothers Homes, and the last slide, you'll see brick, which is not always attractive, and that's not 100% representative of what would be built in your community, but it's just to show that not all brick means attractive. So I guess to end, we would appreciate if the process was slowed down, and we'd be happy if Robertsons and other practitioners in the community could place input with McKenna on facade design. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What company are you representing?
Robertson Brothers Homes.
Robertson? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Sir, do you want to say anything? Okay. All right, we'll move on to correspondence, which we don't have any correspondence right now. Okay. All right, public hearing. So the public hearing is to consider an amendment to the Northfield Township zoning ordinance, which is Article 24 supplementary regulations and standards to include new section 36-739, which is architectural design and building material guidelines. So I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Support?
Motion by Stanilecho, support by Chick. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, the motion carries 7-0. Hunter? I don't know your last name, I'm sorry.
Hunter, nice to meet
Yep.
everyone. We are covering for video. To my understanding, you've seen these a couple times, and I was able to identify who this section D. Reference that last sentence in reference to D1 and D2. Upon reviewing this, it actually should be referring to C1 and C2. Talk to video, just clarify, just better fix that. It wouldn't be in the packet draft for the township board. That's clearly item E, taken on E, B, D3, D4, D5, should be C3, C4, C5. It is, already fixed that in the draft. Outside of that, I think that's actually questions.
All right, anybody have any questions? I know we discussed this at our last meeting, last couple of meetings. Mr. Thomas?
Well, I'm just curious, from the planning consultant, Robertson Homes' rep, and included in our packet, there are some suggested revisions. Are those something that you would recommend including in what gets sent to the township board?
Yeah, if you look at those, it looks like,
They seem to make a lot of sense.
you know, I haven't had time to review them in depth. It looks like we're going from 25 to 75%. If I heard the gentleman correctly, I believe that we talked about changing something to 15% as well. I did not see where that was indicated in this markup. And if you also see in C3, we changed 25% on the side, rear facades, and clarifying that the 50%, maybe that was a comment. My apologies. Just realizing that. So changing 50% to the front and 25% on the side and the rear, I would agree that that would make sense. Going further on, item 8, it looks like we're eliminating part of the sentence, taking out all directly across the street and driving to it. You know, I guess what I would say is I think it would be best for Lydia to review these comments. I don't believe that change on this yet. I would say on the 50% and 25% on the side there, I think that would make sense. Just seeing a practical standpoint versus subdivision. You see obviously on the rear side going up 0.0%. Certainly that one I think makes sense from a logical standpoint, but again, I would defer to Lydia on her.
Okay.
So, Mr. Thomas, one thing I want to mention is under E, which is modifications. It says that the planning commission does have the discretion to modify those. So I think that what we were trying to do is get something on the books, because we've been,
Absolutely.
so I have no problems about, rather than sort of nitpicking the numbers, is that sort of go along with something that we can then modify, because it gives us the ability to do that for the individual applicant.
Understood, and I'm not throwing up a roadblock.
Yeah.
I've got one more comment, and it's about the provision about modifications. The only suggestion I would add there is When you give a decision-making body or a judge, for instance, the discretion to do something, and you tell them to make a finding, if they're going to deviate from what's in the statute, it should be done in writing.
Oh, yeah.
So there should be, somewhere in here, should be inserted the idea that upon finding that any modification, upon a finding in writing, that any modification of these standards. That's all.
So I would write that down, and then if we decide to move and make the recommendation, we include that in as a recommendation to the township board to have that included.
Great.
Yes, Mr. Gordon?
I only had one minor question on the very first article under A, when it talks about the primary goal of these standards is to upgrade the appearance of all structures within the township. That's because we want this to apply to people that are, for instance, remodeling their house, or do we want to just make this new construction and add the word in there, upgrade the appearance of all new structures? Just curious.
That's a good,
I'm trying to
good comment.
there's clarification on remodifications within this, but I believe you're correct. The way you're reading it, it looks like it would apply to any and everything.
I mean, if that's the desire of the planning commission, that's fine with me. I just wanted to make sure that we knew what we were doing there.
So and I would think it says detached single-family dwellings, which is under exemptions, constructed on existing lots or new vacant parcels. So I think that reading shows that it's, an existing house would be exempted.
The only other thing is there are a couple of sections in the ordinance that we're looking at that this Robertson Brothers would like to be removed. I don't really want to see either one of those removed.
Okay.
Just a comment.
Okay. Anybody else want to have a discussion?
I just have a question. So the issues that I'm sorry, I missed your name. Jeff, that he brought up, are you saying that those are already addressed and they're just not in this copy?
So if you look in your packet, after our draft, there's also a Robertson Brothers
Right.
recommended revisions. And it should be red line track changes. They're very few. And to answer your question, I do believe definitely item C3 makes sense, clarifying that the 50% is only in the front, 25 for the rear and the side. Changing the vinyl siding, hardening board siding, 25 up to 75%.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right, is there any other discussions on that? So I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll support.
All right, motion by Stan Alacho, support by Ms. Chick. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, reports of the committees. Ms. Chick, Board of Trustees.
Okay, I sent this out. It's a little long. I apologize. It's been a bit since we this board has, or this commission's met. So the board met February 25th. The board received an update on 75 Barker renovation project. The firehouse proposal has had several delays due to agency and administrative holdups, but are near the end of being able to obtain final permits and move forward. The board extended the contract for the deadline for work an additional 60 days. The board also discussed a new proposed building department fee schedule. The item was tabled to a future meeting, allowing time for clarifications, further revisions, and study of fee schedules utilized by surrounding similar communities. There was also a review of the building official job description and reporting structure. The board has been considering a full-time building official to oversee the operations of our building department relating to inspections, construction plan reviews, and so forth. The board moved to approve contracting with Vetrano Consulting, who is handling the township manager search at a cost of $15,500. There has been some additional considerations regarding this position since, so there will be further updates. A request from the Land Preservation Committee for funds for a conservation easement for the Anus property at 5655 Earhart Road. The board approved an expenditure of $52,600 from the Land Preservation millage for the conservation easement. A second request for an expenditure of $57,400 from the Land Preservation millage was also approved for a conservation easement for a property owned by St. John's Church on Northfield Church Road. The board approved a contract with Tetra Tech for a sewer study to review sewer capacity between North Territorial Lake Road running north to North Territorial Pump Station in anticipation of new development proposed for that area. The cost of the study will be paid for by the developer. The study needed board approval because the township would cover the costs initially and was required to deposit, the developer was required to deposit $10,000 in escrow, which they have. Township proposed moving the building department and staff into the manager's office and the manager into the current building department office. The building department is cramped and having difficulty for room and storage and staff. There will be a cost to move the furniture, add workstations, phone lines, and computer lines, and electrical outlets as needed, as well as painting and carpet. The board approved a cost of no greater than $20,000, but it will more likely be $15,500. The board also received an update from Vetrano Consulting regarding the manager search. The board approved scheduling a closed session prior to its regular meeting on March 25th to receive information on the status and applicant results. The board also approved a budget amount of $30,000 for the review and updating of the township master plan with McKenna Associates. There was an additional discussion about the need for a new sewer study in coordination with the master plan update. Tetra Tech proposed the study could cost as much as $40,000, depending on what the Planning Commission would request of them in developing the master plan and how the sewer system plays into growth. It was determined that the township had contracted with Tetra Tech over the last 5 years and beyond for very comprehensive studies of the system, and that information the commission might need to consider was available in those studies. It was recommended that Tetra Tech attend a planning commission meeting to discuss their part going forward in providing information as requested. The board also received a request from our controller, Woodhill Group, for a fee increase. The item was tabled. The board approved requesting bids for lawn care and snow removal services for the township-owned property. Our last contract bid was from 2019 and renewed in 2022, has expired. Comments from the board members was that there was dissatisfaction with our current service. And there was another comment, or this was not an agenda item, but it came up in comments, and I left it out of my report regarding the pre-concept and pre-application ordinance that was amended with the last board at the township manager's request to make it so that the township manager would decide who could participate into these two meetings and at his discretion. So the board is recommending that the ordinance be amended again back to where it was before, where it is required that the planner and anyone else at his discretion, engineer, whoever, zoning administrator, whatever he needs at those meetings is in attendance, and that there be a fee assessed, and that fee would be put into escrow. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gordon?
Trustee Chick, I just had one question, that especially on the last thing there, the discretion. So the pre-application meetings with the soon-to-be hired manager, whether anybody else sits in on those meetings is still solely at the discretion of the manager?
You mean for planning commission items or for developments?
Yeah.
Currently, it's just the manager that meets, and anyone else that sits in is at his discretion. We want to change it back to where the planner and other people that he decides should be in attendance would be in attendance. So the planner would be required. If he wants an engineer, because it depends on what the development is. If it's a big development, then they would need an engineer there. So it could be a single-family home or whatever. But anyway, yeah, so we want to move it back to where it was before it got changed at the manager's request.
Okay, so at least another person besides the manager will be in the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Hopefully more than one.
And that needs to be changed.
It needs to be amended, so the planning commission would have to do the amendment.
We'll have to get that on our schedule,
Yep.
so we can do that, have a public hearing, and then make the recommendations. So, all right, so Julie, can we get that scheduled onto our agenda here at some point? All right, great. ZBA, well, thank you, Ms. Chick, sorry.
No, fine.
Mr. Zarzeki.
Yes, the ZBA did meet on Monday. We had 2 requests for variances from the absolute storage that is on our new business. The first variance was approved, which was for the addition, a variance that they did not have to add 38 additional parking spaces for the new buildings they are currently putting up, as there's adequate parking there. And it is a storage facility, and there's no need to have 100-plus car parking at a storage facility. So that was a practical matter. The second request was in our section that we were discussing earlier, in a sense, the supplemental regulations and standards for a variance for masonry requirement. Current standard is that they have to have 100% masonry on the walls of all the structures. The existing storage facility does not. It is basically metal siding, vertical metal siding at this point. It was denied for the variance to eliminate the requirement for masonry, and we told them basically, actually, we denied it, but we tabled it in a sense. It was tabled simply because it would have to require another, basically, public hearing. And at the cost, it was not necessary, since we are in the process of changing the standard right now. The owners did still object to the current change that we're, proposing, in the sense that it requires at least a minimum of 25% masonry on all external surfaces for the industrial and commercial property. They have a situation where the new buildings are going to be facing only the old buildings. You will not see them from the road or from 23. And they felt that they should be able to still continue on with metal siding only there. The ZBA did not agree with them, obviously, but we did table it so that they could come back after this information on the new one comes out. They were also recommended to get a copy of our new proposal so they could comply with it. They are currently anticipating only putting it on the sides that would be exposed to the roadways. So that would not meet even our current one or the one that we are proposing. So at this point, it's in limbo in a sense. We're not sure what they're going to come back with. We gave them until the end of April to come back after the new ordinances are hopefully issued. And that was the only thing we had at the meeting.
All right, very good, thank you. Julie, do you have anything to add, or? You haven't met Mr. Gordon yet, have you? We did. Okay, all right, okay. Okay, Planning consultant? Okay. Parks and Rec?
We haven't met, and we'll meet tomorrow night.
Okay. And Land Preservation Committee, Mr. Gordon?
Thank you. We met in the first week of March, and the Land Preservation Committee is very interested in the process that the Planning Commission is going through in terms of reviewing the master plan, because we want to make sure that we're not working at cross purposes. And so the Land Preservation, at our next meeting, we're working on a draft request to the Planning Commission to see if you would be receptive to us participating in some way or another in this process that the Planning Commission is involved in. There's expertise on the Land Preservation Committee that I don't believe the Planning Commission has, and so we're going to draft a request and bring it to you to see if we can collegially work together on this. That's all we have besides the two parcels that the township board.
Steal your thunder. I thought
No,
about it
it's
when I read it. Okay.
perfectly okay. That funding hasn't come through yet, so it's not something we're announcing as a done deal. So we just have our fingers crossed that all the documents will be signed and the money will come through, and that's very exciting. First two properties that we can use our taxpayer-funded millage money on.
So I do have a question on that. Is there any other funds from any other sources coming into this to buy those developmental rights?
Oh, absolutely. We're contributing only about 10% of the total cost.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussions or questions? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to unfinished business, and that is recommend to the Township Board of Trustees either approval with changes to the amendment to the Northfield Township zoning ordinance, Article 24, supplementary regulations and standards. I'm going to make the motion that we recommend to the Township Board the Northfield Township zoning ordinance, Article 24, that's presented to us with the following changes. That is under Section D, first paragraph, B in parentheses, and both of those in that first sentence should be changed to C. Under sections or subsection E, which is non-residential development, same thing, the lines should be, instead of B in the parentheses, it should be C for all three of them. And then under modifications, Mr. Thomas, do you want to add in the language you want to have in there?
So I think it should read, "The Planning Commission shall have the discretion to modify any provision in this article upon a finding, comma, in writing, that any modification of these standards elevates the quality of architecture, et cetera, et cetera."
Okay.
What I would anticipate is that the Planning Commission would have a discussion about the existing ordinance, would say, we're specifically going to identify the ordinance that we're modifying and why, and have that, and I think the writing could probably be satisfied with an insertion into the minutes, but make sure that it's not in summary form, that it's a little bit elevated above that.
Yep.
So you want to have it included in writing with an explanation of what section they're requesting to be altered?
That's what I would anticipate happening. I think the language upon a finding in writing is probably sufficient, but I'm just kind of spinning it out, because anytime you deviate from something, it's a good idea to kind of back it up as much as possible, because the way that those things are attackable is if somebody says, well, they deviated from it and we don't know why, and they didn't express a sound or a reasonable reason why. That's all.
Okay. So for Lisa's doing the minutes, it's going to be just a comma in writing?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other suggestions on alterations there? All right, so that's my motion.
I'll support.
Motion by Stanalacho, Support by Chick. Any discussions about that? All right, can we do a roll call vote? Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
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 All right, very good. Motion passes. Thank you. And we're going to go on to new business, which is 11A. And this is the Planning Commission consideration of scheduling a public hearing for absolute self-storage, which is Whitmore Lake Climate Storage, located at 6684 Whitmore Lake Road, and it's parcel B0220300018. The applicant has proposed the construction of 2 additional storage buildings and the conversion of an existing warehouse structure into a climate-controlled storage facility. The subject site is zoned LI, which is limited industrial, and is also located within the Whitmore Lake North Territorial Overlay District. The LI zoning district does not permit mini warehouses or mini storage facilities as either permitted or conditional use. However, this consideration is for the mini warehousing, which is permitted as a conditional land use in the WLNT, Whitmore Lake North Territorial Overlay District. All right, so I assume you are the applicant? I'm the applicant's engineer. Okay. Why don't you come on up and you can have a conversation here and present what you want to present.
So I'm Joe Maynard with Washtenaw Engineering. I guess at this point, I'm sure are you all familiar with the property and the project? Give you a little background here. This applicant has been going through several additions over the years. We're back here, I would say 3 years ago for the other 2 buildings that were expanded. That's where he got the variance for the brick just on the ends of the buildings. But I kind of wanted to go through the planner's letter and just kind of address each one of these items in a little more detail. The first one is the 6-foot fence. There is an existing 6-foot fence all the way around the property. The photographs are a little hard to understand in the plans, but the idea was where the numbers are. That's kind of the view you're getting from each one of those locations, so you could see the fence line. We did add all of the notes on the plan as far as the height of the fence and the type of fence that are on the property. There was a note here about using, we've got an area where we're proposing some additional fencing, but the idea was just to reuse the fencing that was there because we're expanding the pond slightly and moving it over. So we would take that fence out and put it back on as long as it's in good condition and not purchase a new fence in that area. So there's also a note regarding the area that is located down closer to 23, and that area is currently gravel, and it's always been used as kind of miscellaneous storage of vehicles and cars. There's really no layout down there. It's just whatever needs to be stored down there has always been stored down there. The septic field area is not utilized anymore because the building is currently hooked up to the sanitary sewer. So that easement really isn't necessary to be used as a drain field any further for this property. So I guess, feedback on, you need to clarify that on the plans. There's no desire to stripe it or anything. It's just to continue to use it as it has been.
So that is one of the things that I was going to discuss about this is on your plans, all of it just shows as just a grassy area. But obviously, photographs over a number of years shows it's not just a grassy area, it is a lot that you're using. And so, I mean, for me, as one planning commissioner, and looking at your site plan, I think you should actually put it down as something that you utilize, because otherwise it's just a grassy area that is not to be utilized for anything other than a grassy area.
That makes sense. I mean, we can label it as gravel.
Well, you use it like a parking lot, so I mean, you could, so I mean, at least that should be on the plans for us in order to consider, because that's, you know, looking at the picture of the overview, that's exactly what it is. So I just think it needs to be on there for all of them, because otherwise, you're going to end up not being able to utilize that except for anything other than grass.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, all right, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, so.
and we do have, you know, a nice row of trees actually between that and the main facility, kind of giving a little bit of a green buffer space there as well. And we are planning to maintain that. So the one, which obviously is going to jump out to us, is the 25% ZBA request for block or brick facade on buildings. As we mentioned, previously we had just the end caps, previously proposed or approved on the storage buildings that they were built. The intent here was to kind of match that, so that you don't get one unit with, you know, brick corners and brick facade on the ends of every season, and all of a sudden you've got something totally different on the ends. The idea was to kind of match that. If you look at the plans, the cold storage facilities building, we actually proposed more brick in that building. And there's another building on the property, which is the RV storage unit, which also has the brick veneer proposed on that. So the storage units, though they're long, we may only do 10, 12%. But once you add in cold storage and the RV covered, unit covered storage spaces, we're actually creeping pretty close to 25% total for all of those buildings together. I'm not sure, obviously with the new ordinance, how we proceed, so I'm hoping to kind of have a discussion on how we proceed, because under your new ordinance, planning commission has the right to modify the section, but currently we're in with the ZBA, talking to them about this section, so I'm looking for guidance on how you'd want us to proceed, what your thoughts are on that scheme.
Well, go on, Mr. Thomas.
So I'm walking into the design standards kind of midstream. What exists now that the ZBA felt it couldn't get a variant or grant a variance? What sort of brick versus siding?
They are putting what they call a wrap on the corner of brick. And on the newer buildings, they have, I believe it's 25% at the base.
It's about 4 foot tall at the
Yeah.
base. It goes around the corner, then it goes all the way up in the corner, roughly
Right.
4 foot wide. And then on the ends that you really see, it's brick all the way across the bottom. So you get the
Right.
brick halo with metal siding in the middle. But then once you go down the aisles, there's no brick. It's just
Right, so-
door with metal all the way down. You imagine 25%, we might have one brick between each doorway. So it just seemed to make sense to really put the brick where people are going to see it.
Mr. Thomas, I think right now you're asking, right now it's required 100% masonry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
Without without what we send to the Board of Trustees, the existing ordinance.
existing ordinance requires all masonry,
Okay.
all surfaces.
Okay. And we're considering sending to the Board of Trustees for approval the idea that we would reduce that and give the Planning Commission the discretion to modify it.
Right.
I don't want to pre-vote or prejudge, but this certainly feels like it's an excellent case study for a potential modification. I mean, if we're just trying to match what's there and there.
Yeah, what they would like to be able to do is where the new building is going to face one of the existing buildings, to leave it as the sheet metal
Right.
and not have to put brick at that location, which does make sense, but does not meet the current requirements, and therefore ZBA could not adjust it.
Speaking of the microphone. It's okay.
So I think that Video's review for the Zoning Board of Appeals pointed out that although they do have, they were given a variance for the existing buildings, but the circumstances were much different than what they are requesting now. And I would encourage you to read her review and the reasoning before considering a modification, just so you can see her reasoning behind that. And I think she was encouraging Mr. Evans also to, consider looking at this ordinance, that you might be almost there, and I'm not sure by what you're saying.
It's almost there if you consider all of the buildings together and average them all together. I'm like 24.5% on the quick calculation I did. We're just trying to put more where it's going to be seen and less where it's not so, in between the units, it's, it's storage units.
So Mr. Thomas brought up a great comment here. So if this ordinance change that we are sending off to the township board passes, which wouldn't be until, I believe, at the earliest, next week.
Oh, yeah, it wouldn't be next week, it would be the following meeting, yeah, the agenda's already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't be able to utilize that till it's approved by the township board, so that, the modification right now isn't something that we're allowed to do. So, right now, we're just having this discussion to set up a public hearing. So if, at the public hearing then, which would be 18 days? 18 days? 15? So it wouldn't be until next month anyhow, right? If the township board does accept and pass that, then that would end up being the time that we could actually have a discussion about modifying this for you. And it'd probably be, easier than going to the ZBA if it's something that we consider as a planning commission to allow that to, be modified. So I don't know if that's what you want to do.
Well,
You-
I guess I would look to you. I mean, is that something you would feel favorable about? If it is adopted, would you consider, basically the plan we have is provide more brick where it's going to be seen, not so much just in the middle of the storage units where nobody's really going to see it unless you're driving down and put stuff in your storage unit. I guess that's what I'm kind of looking for, is a little bit of guidance.
So, one of the reasons we were doing the architectural standards is so that we get some visual input into what people are going to be developing or changing their buildings to look to like. So we're trying to improve the looks of our community. And we didn't have a standard prior. We don't right now. Some of it's built into the zoning ordinances, sort of like the 100% masonry. But obviously that doesn't allow us flexibility at this point. You have to go to get a variance from that, which you already tried, and they tabled that at this point. So I think that part of the reason is this is the visual thing. So I don't see very good pictures of what your rendering is going to be like or what you want to propose. So what I would suggest that you do is come through with what it is you propose and a good rendering, something that ends up giving some kind of detail to that other than what we're seeing right now. And then, you should be able to do a color thing and present that to us so we get an idea like that. And at the next time that you come back to have this considered. Ms. Chick?
Yeah, no, actually, that was my comment as well, is that when you're saying, you've got door after door after door, and then just a small space in between, we don't know how big that small space is, and that might make a difference. Okay, yeah, but if visual is really excellent, if we don't always get out to go wander the property. Also, I wanted to say, the next board meeting is April 8th, and then not again till the 22nd, so it'll be one of those 2 dates, so.
The board would be making a decision on the ordinance.
Yes. I'm assuming that the ordinance we just discussed today would not be on any agenda before the 8th of April.
And you said the next board meeting was what day?
Our very next one is the 25th of this month.
Oh, board meeting.
Yeah, but the board meeting where the ordinance would be probably discussed is going to be around April 8th. A question for you. On
on the long elevation where the space between the overhead doors are, like you said, 2 feet, there is no block shown, but on another elevation on the end ones, you do show block. Is that a wider spacing? One that shows block is A 2.0, but the one that does not show is 1.0. We're just trying to see
Different
a
buildings.
minimum that you have between. Like on the end walls.
Yeah, on this end, building end elevation.
Yeah.
That space is 1 foot, right here on the very corner.
But in between the doors.
Between the doors is 2 foot.
So why do you put block there but not on the elevation of 1.0 where it's also 2 feet? Just trying to figure out what the logic is. So all these elevation.
Oh, yeah. This is the space between the units. And then this is the end cap.
Yeah.
See, this part the public would see, yeah.
No, I get it. I'm just trying to figure out why you're showing block in some cases, not in the other elevations, but.
Yeah, we're just trying to put the block where people are gonna see it visually, like either from the roadway or from the highway. This is the part you're gonna be seeing as you're driving on the road. The only time you'll really see it between the buildings is if you're driving between them.
So I think what would help too, like Mark was saying, is that perhaps you show some, when you do the rendering, show on the site plan elevation directions,
Yeah, that makes sense.
feel for which view you're coming from.
Let's see what else is.
Close enough to it.
Let me ask him.
Last comment, well, not the last comment, tree mitigation. There was a question about the plants along the cold storage building. Basically, we're providing arborvitaes, give some tall height, and then some smaller plants between it, kind of give some variation on that building. You know, it's 5 foot 4 inches wide, which is enough room for those plants to grow. I don't know if that's what you, we'll get some more detail on the plan to help clarify that.
Yeah, that'd be good if you could put a dimension drawing on it.
Okay. I don't know if there was any recommendations to switch any of those out, or you're fine with those plants?
It looks like the recommendation is maybe considering species that are tall and narrow. At least that's the recommendation put forward.
Okay.
Deep, 5 feet.
We'll take a look, I'll have my landscape architect look at that.
So one other suggestion, I know we had some photos of what the property looks like right now. These aren't really, I mean, I don't think these are representative necessarily of what you're trying to show us, because this doesn't really show me much of anything, other than just some buildings. So, I mean, I don't know what you're trying to convey in that. But I think some renderings would help out with, like I said, with this, rather than the pictures, because they don't really show me anything of what you want to get to. This kind of just shows me that there's some buildings in there with some fencing.
Yeah, I think it was meant to kind of see, this is what you're gonna see as you're traveling down the roadway. It's like you're gonna see the fence in the front, and the buildings way in the background, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. The last one was the trash enclosure. There's only one dumpster on site, and it's between the buildings, and it's gated. That's the existing trash enclosure. We're not proposing a new one. I can add a note to address that. Yeah.
I just got noticed that you don't have your mic on, or you're not speaking into your mic. They can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
The red light should be on.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Red light's on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good?
You might have to speak closer.
They're texting me, yeah.
Got it.
If you can hear yourself echo, they can hear you. If you can't hear yourself, they can't hear you.
Okay.
So, what's our next step?
Well, you have to let us know what you want to do. We can I would be comfortable enough in order to recommend that we have a public hearing on this. But that's up to you. If you want to have us schedule a public hearing, and address the things that we just discussed with you, so it'll be ready at that public hearing, working obviously with our planner to make sure it's what it is we're looking for. You just tell us, and then you're the one that's going to drive this.
Right. I think it would be best if we can schedule the public hearing after the board meeting that's going to review the ordinance.
It wouldn't be able to be scheduled until after that board meeting anyhow.
When would that public hearing be held then?
It would be our 16th. Right, yeah.
Then I would say yes.
Okay.
Proceed. And we can bring forward some color renderings at that time. That would be a public hearing, right? We have a chance to present.
That's exactly when you would be presenting. Yep. All right, then yeah, Ms.
But, I would suggest taking a look at, well, you do have this information from McKenna, but the less we get back at the planning commission that doesn't have underlines, the happier we are, and it's easier for us to make a decision. So if anything can be addressed before it comes back, that would be awesome.
Are we resubmitting before the public hearing or not at this time? We just go to the public hearing?
What's that?
Are we going to resubmit plans and stuff before the public hearing?
Yes.
I would recommend that so you can get as rid of many underlying things as Janet referred to, so then it will make them easier to possibly approve you that day if you can clear up those items.
Yeah, because your public hearing should have all, like, the grassy knoll area that you're going to alter.
Not the grassy knoll.
Well, it is a JFK thing. It was just released the other day, so I had to put that in there. So yeah, the grassy, that grassy area, that needs to be included on your plans. That should be, your plans should be complete with everything, so that when we look at it, it's going to be, instead of this discussion right now, it'll be like we can just accept it the way that it is.
Colored renderings and some photographic documentation of the existing buildings would be great.
Sort of like the gentleman that was in here before, that, they presented something like this with,
Yeah, I can see those.
yeah, so I mean, it's like, so we can look at it like that. Okay? All right, then I'll make the motion to schedule the
Mr.
public.
Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I
Yes.
did a one more comment.
Oh, yeah, go
or-
ahead.
So with regard to timing, they don't want to come back until after the board makes a decision. The board could table it. What's the lead time on notices for a public hearing? And can we push the domino, can we hold the domino up until we find out we can't, can we? Yeah.
There's not enough time.
I'd hate for you to schedule a public hearing and the notices go out, and then the board tables the issue or doesn't take a vote, or I guess that would be the way that you would get jammed up.
Right, but the public hearing is just for the public to hear the project. You don't vote on it that night, or do you vote
We can,
that night?
we can.
I guess we'll move forward at this point.
Okay.
You want to schedule that then? Okay.
So keep in mind, that public hearing is going to be for the conditional land use,
Yes.
not the site plan.
Right.
So you can all, I mean.
We could
you
do
can
'em
approve
both.
the conditional land use,
We have.
We could
done
do 'em both.
Yeah.
right, but if you didn't necessarily have to vote for the site plan at that public hearing, that can be pushed off. And then the April 21st ZBA meeting, you still have that in between there as well.
Julie, that's a great point. The public hearing's only on the use part of it.
Correct.
Yep, I got wrapped up in the details.
Correct.
So do you want us to schedule the public hearing for the conditional use? You're not going to put on and have us consider your site plan at the same meeting?
If we get everything cleaned up, yeah, we would like to, yes.
Okay. All right.
The only advisement I have on that is I'm not sure how the submittal deadlines work for Northfield, but making sure that consultants have enough time to review those to make sure they'll have a review prepared for that meeting.
No, check with me. Yep. Yep, sounds good.
That should give us a month in order to try and wrap this up, so. And if nothing else, we could end up postponing the site plan if things aren't in line. And still, it's just, but, all right. So I'm going to make the motion to schedule the public hearing for absolute self-storage, which is Whitmore Lake Climate Control Storage, located at 6684 Whitmore Lake Road, parcel B0220300018. And that public hearing will be for the conditional use. And I would also like to then schedule the site plan for this development if everything is lined up with our planner and township staff. All right, that's my motion. All right. Motion by Stanilecho, support by Thomas. Any discussion? All right, well, we'll do a roll call vote on that, if you would, Mr. Thomas.
Ms. Chick?
Yes.
Ms. Ganem?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Ms. Matthews? Mr. Stanilechko?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas votes yes. Mr. Zarzaki?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to 11B. This is a discussion on the master plan and sewer capacity information. So since our last meeting, I wanted to share some information that I've been trying to gather for us. I've been trying to get some specific numbers for us since we are adding sewer, we're digging into our sewer capacity. We're taking numbers away from it every development that we've put in. The last one was 300-plus units. And I had been in contact with Mr. Rubel, which is our consultant through Tetra Tech. And I asked him specifically for some numbers. I was looking for numbers at the wastewater treatment plant. What is our capacity? What do we have left? A hard number. Are the pumping station at North Territorial and Whitmore Lake Road, what is the capacity of the pumping station? And I also asked for what is the REUs for the rest stop, since I've seen that, I've seen no numbers for that, because that rolls into that also. And I have not been able to get any information. It was, the conversations going back and forth was, it's a complicated question. And my comment back was, there's been studies done, so those numbers should be readily available, because we've been making decisions based upon being told that there is capacity. So my question was, how much capacity? We need a number so we can start looking at it as a planning commission and say, we're getting into these numbers that are taking big chunks away from our wastewater treatment plant capacity, but we don't know what those numbers are. We don't know what the numbers are. We don't know what the pumping station is. We don't know the capacity of the lines. These are bits of information that apparently is not readily available. So there was some discussion about, and at the board level, about having a comprehensive overall view study of everything in the wastewater treatment plant. Lines, pumping station capacity, capacity at the plant, all the things that we need to know for our master plan for planning for the future. Because if we don't know what those numbers are currently, like right now, how do we plan for the future when we don't even know what it is currently? And that bothers me as a planning commissioner, that we're approving developments, some of them, big of them, that are tapping in and are taxing our system, and we don't have that information readily available to us. So it was recommended in these discussions to bring this up as a discussion here at the Planning Commission, so that we can end up having Mr. Rupel come and talk to us about the questions we may have about this. And then, at least the way I was told is that then after we talk with him, that we can then end up making a recommendation, if we choose to the township board to contract to do an overall study that gives us a complete comprehensive overview of our entire wastewater treatment plant and sewer system. Because right now, apparently, we don't have that entirely big picture. So,
That's a big concern. Why isn't that
Ms. Chick.
documented all along?
We do. We have those numbers, and I don't know why he's telling you that, because we had to have all that information done for the, excuse me, the bonding. We had to do a study, and that was just done recently. He's done a presentation here gave us numbers. He's done a presentation at the board at least 3 times with numbers. And the last number, and I'm not gonna try and quote him because this is all in my head, I don't know if I got the numbers right, was at the Northfield Trail Whitmer Lake Road area, there was between 800 and 1,000 REUs available. And we supposedly still have REUs still available. The capacity in the line, they were not concerned about because it is the line that runs, there's 2 lines. One is gravity, one is force main, but the line that area uses, there is capacity. It's the other line that goes through downtown that doesn't have the capacity. It's right at the top end of where it should be or is, because if there's a heavy rain or a snowfall or something like that, then we're totally at capacity. We're not recommending any building until the sewer line is repaired in that area, excuse me. So those numbers are available. We have numbers available for the SADs that we're obligated to. We have numbers that are available for the Green Oak that we've obligated to them through a judgment that were given. There's numbers for, I believe were included in the numbers was the 23 brush stop. But yeah, they're there. I'm not sure why he's telling you that. And all those numbers are available online in the presentations. I think that when we could probably schedule him if we could for our next planning commission meeting, get him here and do another presentation, because that really surprised me that he said that.
so one of the things that was suggested is that because this is going to be a cost of the township, that having him come here and make a presentation to us, that we get the township board to approve the funds for him to come and speak to us.
That's fine.
And so that's the reason that I really wanted to bring this up, is to get him here, but also too, to make sure that we can properly do this and make the request to the township board.
So it'll probably be a couple hour meeting, I would think, with anything else that we had on the same agenda, but he would be sitting through that. But, and that money would actually come out of the planning department budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any other discussions? Anybody wants, yeah, Mr. Thomas?
Just briefly, I need some materials to review before,
I will send out what I've got to everybody.
please. Yeah, I don't, it would be kind of useless for us to be blind receiving a presentation of that nature. I want to know more than I know now going into when that presenter comes.
Yeah, because you'll have questions,
So I'm going to try and get him to send us
the presentation.
the presentation and the last sewer study that he says that there was, which was in 2015.
2020.
All right, well,
was
that's,
one, yeah.
he was only saying about 2015, so. But anyways, I would like to, I'm going to ask him to send it in PDF file. The last communication they had with him said that the last township manager had it in printed form in his office, which is, nobody can find. So I'd rather get a PDF file sent to us and have that
a printed
available.
form, but you can't have it.
I found it online.
Is it online?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right here.
The 2015?
The 2000, yeah, the 2015.
There's a 2020 one that is like,
Yeah, I've got all of them.
okay, oh, good.
All right, okay.
I went scanning through, because I'm concerned about this as well, and, I mean, I've got stuff that goes
Where did
all
you
the way
find that on the township website?
in
Yeah,
the
if you-
documents.
Yeah,
Okay.
Basically, I did a lot of tracing
if you go to the,
backwards through the meetings.
if you go to the wastewater treatment plant
There's some
site,
information.
the 2020's in there, and I think the 2015's in there.
Right. But then I also
But-
got memos and all
Those are
the other ones.
Right, those are 5 years old.
Right.
But what he gave us recently was just in the last year.
Yeah.
So-
That's this one.
Anyways, this discussion was so that we can all have questions answered and not just not just me asking questions, and this is something we all need to be involved in. So, Mr. Gordon?
John, I think it'd be great, and Janet, if you could share the information that you have with all of us so that we could take a look at it somehow. The other question that I'd like to ask of Mr. Rubel is, we have property in the township that's already zoned for more residential development. And I'd like to know, were those projects developed? If that land is developed, how many REUs is that going to eat? Because right now, we have something like 3,500 rooftops in the township, not counting Chestnut Phase 1. But when you add in Chestnut Phase 1, Phase 2, Robertson, and Detroit Riverside Capital, that's over 1,000 rooftops. That's 30% increase in the township population in a matter of what, going to be a couple of years, 5 years maybe. I'd be shocked if the wastewater treatment plant had a 30% capacity. I mean, we may have used it up all already.
Yeah, but it's 3,500 rooftops, and not everybody's on the sewer.
Right.
Well, that's true.
So, and the other thing, so I've thought about this too. You know, when we have an individual house or even a commercial building hook up into the sewer plant, typically it's not that many taps. 1, 2, you know, a commercial building might have 4 or 5, but when you're talking about 300 plus, that's taxing our system. And that is something that we all need to be aware of and be conscious of, especially because if we're getting close to an end number, there needs to be some improvements done, and those people that are proposing 300 home developments need to be the ones paying for that change, because they're the ones putting the biggest tax on our system. And so I think they should end up bearing a big portion of the cost to upgrade to allow for their development to go in. And I know that it's on a first come, first served basis, but it doesn't seem fair to push this all down the road, and then when that one development then pushes us over, now they're responsible for all of that stuff. We should be responsible in making the improvements along the way and not waiting till the very end. Right, Ms. Chick.
So I believe, I'm going to pick a number out of my head that I'm remembering, we had over 1,200, somewhere between 1,200 and 2,000 RUs that are obligated to SADs or other obligations. So even if we still have that, but we can't take those and use them for a new development if we run out of RUs for new development, because when those development, when those come in, then we have nothing to give them. So
Well,
that can't be that part can't be first come first.
I don't know if we can actually hold
We can.
plant, no, I'm saying, but I'm not sure that's smart, to hold plant capacity back for those SADs that haven't yet tapped into that, because that's a future, that's something down the road. It may never happen. You know, we need.
But they're paying for them. They've been paid for, yeah.
Right, no, I understand it's an obligation. We're not ever going to turn them down, but the improvements should be done along the way. And even if we have capacity, you need to be conscious of that. But, I mean, I don't think you can constantly keep that amount carved away when you're having these pressures come in. But at some point in time, somebody needs to make a decision to improve things. And like I said, if we're
Right, at some point, we're going to run out of capacity, and then there will be no more development, so.
like I said, we need to get some information to be able to move forward on things. And whether we can get the information from Mr. Rubel, or we need to ask for a better review of our system, I think that would be something that's prudent for us to do.
Yeah, well, we've paid probably close to $100,000 in studies since 2015, so they better have something we can use.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Zarzaki.
As you were mentioning, we have contracts actually with Green Oaks Township to
Right.
provide them, and we need to know exactly how much we're providing them. These were issued back in 2001.
We do have a number. There is a number, that's why
I don't know if it's in this contract or not. I haven't really gone through all of it.
Is it a contract or is it a
Yeah.
court order?
It's a
Judgment.
It's a
an
judgment.
official contract, yeah.
Okay, my understanding is it's actually a consent judgment.
yes.
I don't know if there is an expiration date on it. That's some of the questions we need to have resolved.
Yep.
I mean, it's signed by the Northfield Township supervisor at the time, McFarland, and Manning was the clerk. It's signed by the Green Oak Township, it's witnessed. I don't see a notary on it, but it is a contract, so.
Yeah, and we have SIDs at North Territorial, all the way down to Udo Huff's place, oh, yeah, and they're paying for it, so.
So there's a lot of questions that need to be put into one packet, in a sense.
So I'm going to make the motion to request Mr. Brian Rupel from Tetra Tech to come to the Planning Commission meeting at our next meeting, which would be April, no, yeah, it'd be April, right?
Yeah.
April 5th? 3rd?
April 2nd.
Second.
April 2nd. And then a request from the Township Board approval for funds to compensate Mr. Rupel for his time coming here. That's my motion.
Oh, I'll approve, I'll support.
Motion by Stanilecho, support by Ms. Chick. Any discussion?
I would like to add that he bring copies of the information that is available that we may not have.
Okay, we'll amend
They may
that.
only have.
So to instruct Mr. Rupel to bring copies of studies or documents that we may not readily be available online.
Can we add that there be a summary page in there that puts it together? Because I imagine there's going to be a lot of pages in the document, but one that gives us the numbers that we can really use.
Mine would assume that it would have a summary with it.
Okay.
I mean, that's how you bring documents.
Mr. Thomas?
Would you consider doing it in two steps? Let's get the information disseminated, and let's, as a collective, meet on April 2nd without calling in Mr. Rubel, and let's talk things through. And I bet if we talk things through on that day, we can narrow the questions that we have for Mr. Rubel and make it a more focused time with him. I wouldn't want to have a rambling 3.5 hour discussion with him where we're doing things like educating ourselves at the same time. I'd love to get the group's collective knowledge upped before we ever see Mr. Rubel.
Ms. Chick?
As far as requesting documents from Mr. Rubel, I would suggest, instead of him providing the 2015 and 2020 study, that you go online and get them yourselves, because you're talking about hundreds of pages of information.
All right.
A lot of it is stuff that we don't need.
Then I'm going to withdraw my motion. Because no, that's okay. There's no need to have the motion then, since we can just ask Julie to have him come at some later point in time when we decide, and then put it on our agenda for next meeting that we're going to have this discussion again.
Okay, then how
Will that
about
work?
this? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
If, Julie, those documents regarding all the studies that he's presentations in the last year to the board and the planning commission are available online, yeah, so maybe if you could get them together and then send them to everybody on the board. Okay.
Yeah, and if you can do that, instead of the Wednesday before our meeting, just whenever it is you can get it to us, so that way we have a little more
Yeah.
time to look at it, so. Will that work? We good? Okay.
We'd still just give a request to Tetra Tech to show up on the 16th.
We could?
I mean, give him notice that he's going to show up, or that we're requesting it. It gives them a month.
Will they give us time?
Julie can just ask, schedule it with them. Yep.
Yeah, we still need to have the funding, because I don't think that's part of his contract, is it?
I'm sorry, what?
I don't think he has a contract to come in for that, does he?
Is a contract to attend meetings? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I believe so, but I don't know how he's paid.
I don't know what his hourly rate is, but the planning commission does have funds in the budget for the professionals.
Right.
All right, so we don't need to have a motion to the township board.
No, let's just ask him to come.
Okay,
Local? Where are they?
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
Can we informally ask him to send us whatever information he thinks we should be informing ourselves about?
So I will go through and compile the studies that Ms. Schick was referring to and any other information. I'll be in contact with Mr. Rubel, let him know what direction you're going in, and inquire about his availability, about being here on the 16th after your discussion on the 2nd.
And he currently is doing a study right now
Yes.
in that area, so he should have
Yep.
that information by then.
Correct.
And that's exactly what he's looking at, is capacity in our.
I'll get as much information as I can, for you guys to go through. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, that was a good discussion. All right, we're going to move on to 12. So there are a couple issues with the minutes. I didn't see any problems till we got to page 6. And that's under the motion, which is, which reads, motion, Stanleycho moved, Thomas seconded, that the request for case JPC 230010 for the Groves, Whitmore Lake be tabled. That's incorrect. That should be for Woodland Farms. So, 6. What?
Woodfield.
Woodfield.
It says here Woodland Farms.
That needs to be corrected too.
That's 11C. So it's Woodfield.
Yep,
Woodfield Farms?
yep.
All right. Well, then that needs to be fixed too. So we need to fix 11C, preliminary review of Woodfield Farms, not Woodland Farms. And then on page 6, the motion, under the motion, it should be for Woodfield Farms to be tabled. And then the second, farther down, the amended motion should also have Woodfield Farms instead of the Groves. And those are the only things that I see were errors. Did anybody else see anything? All right. So I'll make the motion to adopt the minutes as amended. All right. Motion by Stanleycho, support by Mr. Zarzeki. And I should probably clarify that that's for the minutes for February 19th, 2025. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. Final call of the public. There is no public. Comments from commissioners? Oh.
I got one question.
Yeah, sure.
Not a comment, but a question. So when this gentleman came here with,
Yeah, it's being recorded.
since he came in here with a package that was not technically complete, do we not review the contents of their submittals prior to them coming here for any reviews? It just would seem that having a full documentation, the colored renderings, colored site plan, photo, documentation of existing, is that something that somebody checks for prior to them coming in here? Because it just seemed like his package wasn't, a complete package for it to be presented with to anybody, really.
I think that the way we've set this up is so that they can come in and have this, it's kind of an informal thing, even though it's before us, so we can tell them the things before we actually do a formal review.
But there's no checklist, anytime I've ever had to do that, there's always been a checklist and.
There is. Again, this, as Chairman stated, Mark, thank you. This is really designed to present their project. With this case, there was a little bit of confusion with the whole do they go before the ZBA first, or do they come to the planning commission first? So it did go back and forth a couple times. Vidya did do a review for tonight's meeting, but again, some of that was because of the confusion.
I do know, though, that this, if you notice that when their application was first submitted, it was almost 2 years ago.
Yes.
And so there has been revisions on those plans, and Vidya was, she told me she was working with them to try and get them to change some of the things, and sometimes they just weren't open to the suggestions. So I think hopefully now they understand what it is we need to, consider their submittal. Yeah, Ms. Chick?
So I have a question, because I've just been advised in regard to modifying anything from the applicant, that the amendment to allow the planning commission to modify wouldn't apply because it would be modifying to a lesser standard. Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think we're going to
Hold
have
on,
to
let's see
get
what it says.
clarification from Vidya on that, which is where I was trying to allude to. I'm sure that she would want to weigh in on the reasons behind her recommendation to not approve that variance.
Okay. Thank you.
The language of the modification does not state that. Modification of these standards shall not be granted to offset any changes and/or improvements in excess of ordinance standards in other aspects of site design.
If I can just add one more thing, I think the basis of his appeal, and correct me if I'm wrong, was financial, which was a big reason why the board was like, that's not a basis for an appeal.
Right, his statement for the variance was purely financial, that he didn't want to do it that way, which ZBA cannot, by the way it's set up, allow.
From metal to block, that's the financial.
From block to metal.
It just seems that block is actually a little less expensive these days than metal.
Not really. By the square foot, no.
On a lot of our jobs, it has been, but yeah. Yeah. No, I'm just wondering, but financial is usually not a reason.
Ms. Chick, anything? You want to say anything else?
No.
Okay. Ms. Matthews? Mr. Zarzaki? All right, the only thing I would like to say is, as I typically do, I forgot that at the last meeting, is I'd like to make sure that we keep our men and women in uniform in our thoughts and prayers. Their sacrifices every day are what is allowing us to have our freedoms and our freedom of expression, to have meetings like this. And with that, I'm going to make the announcement for the next regular meeting, which is April 2nd, 2025, 7 p.m., and I move to adjourn. Motion by Stanilecho, support by Zarzaki. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed?